Good morning, noon, evening or night, depending when you're watching this video. My name is Alegende and welcome back to World of Tanks and a look back at the Steel Hunter game mode, the Battle Royale game mode of World of Tanks that has been up for several years right now. So I actually wanted to do this look back video specifically for Steel Hunter all the way up to 2021. But it took a while before I got to this video idea, and Steel Hunter 2022 is also already happening, and since most of the points I want to discuss are, well, generally overlapping all of the different Steel Hunter modes over the years, they differ only by very specific details, like which tanks, what kind of abilities, and how the whole loot system works. But since those are just little details, I think I can make a overlapping episode discussing all of Steel Hunter generally. So without further ado, let's go and take a look back at the most notable points of Steel Hunter and see how good or bad this game mode is. So like I said before, Steel Hunter is a Battle Royale game mode, and I grew very fond of this type of game mode in World of Tanks. Although I don't have a lot of experience with this format, I think I played Fortnite like once. But what I get from that prior experience, if you can call that, is that this format can be either very chaotic with too much action, or very boring with little to no action. However, after playing a ton of Steel Hunter games, I came to the conclusion that there is a lot in between where there is enough action and enough overview. Yes, you do have the occasional focused by 3 enemies at the same time moment, or I haven't seen anyone in 5 minutes yet and haven't leveled up because of it. But luckily those moments weren't happening too often and weren't that typical within this game mode. For all the other engagements you get, it's quite an easy fight or flight scenario, if you do have the choice, that is. Knowing when and where to engage is key for victory, and with careful planning you can already outsmart half of your opponents. This constant top 10 position with a long time me just running around the map alive allow me to get both fun and rewards out of this game mode. Another element of the Battle Royale game mode is the danger zone, where you lose HP unless you leave towards the now, well, less available safe zone. I think that this has been well implemented, using the A1 to K0 types of squares we get in standard maps. Also the addition of the yellow zone, which gives you a warning before it gets a danger zone, is very good. This typical element is definitely necessary though to keep the game action-packed as the map gets less and less populated by shrinking it. But speaking about maps, we have 3 right now and I like all of them. One is more open than the other, but with the scale and limited view range it's never felt like it's unfair or unbalanced. I really like this change from other game modes where each team gets a side and there are most of the time 3 corridor-like flanks that you can go and fight. But now you have this huge map where you can engage enemies anywhere from any angle. This makes general map balance unnecessary, no need for symmetry or anything like that. The only thing that should be kept well in balance is the terrain heights, because if the difference in height is too much, you have painfully long climbs upwards, but too little and you have almost nowhere to hide unless you are in a city block. I do have to admit that there are crossover zones in all of the maps, cutting the maps in 2 or 3 effective fighting areas, and in the middle a death zone, but like other type of death zone, just a open area which you can get fired at almost all directions. But that ain't really a bad thing. It adds some extra risk for reward since most of the large drops are dropped in those areas. Also, all the maps have been added to the lore of World of Tanks. Alegende 4.04 in particular has an extra element to it. If you saw my Murney 13 videos, you might know what I'm talking about. I do recommend watching those videos to get the full picture of the relation between Alegende and Murney. But in short, as the proving grounds, there were tests with nuclear explosives that triggered the event that made Murney go all to shit. But moving fully back to Alegende and by also the other maps, the story of those maps are as follows. After the Second World War, a great alliance has been made between all countries across the world. With this alliance, weapon engineers wanted to see how far they can go now that they're all combining all of their technological knowledge. From there, experiments has been started. The proving grounds these experiments left, multiple sites eventually deserted and ruined by some of the more far-fetched results. After that, new experiments were initiated. Commanders from all over the world were invited to test out their best equipment, aka their tanks, on the battlefield to see which of those were victorious. After that, their equipment got improved further and further to the point where new technological discoveries were made and new friends and eventually foes appeared. A prime example was von Hoffmann, the German tank commander who created an electromagnetic weapon system for these experiments. He was accepted into the alliance for the use of his inventions, but if you know the last Waffenträger events, you know what happened to von Hoffmann, also known as Max von Krieger now. So I really love this addition to the lore and all these connections it has with the other game modes. And hopefully we see more stories unfold as more maps get added or maps get more linked towards other game modes like Alegende and Murney. So the tanks look pretty much amazing, and I like that there is a tank from each nation, although we are still missing the Japanese, Italian and the Czech tanks. But I think those will come in the future, with all of them being either a medium tank or a heavy tank. The way that you play the tank is also quite interesting. Instead of guns and potions from randomly distributed drops, you can get upgrades and combat abilities. The upgrades, although maybe limited per tier in number, after playing for a while you can still get a lot of different builds in total. There are 96 different configurations you can make per tank. These are your power upgrades. As the higher tier you get, the better your statistics with each option will be. Now, there are certain meta builds that are the best choice for your tank, but you can always change things up, not being too underpowered comparatively to the full meta build version. For example, the most meta build version of the Americans is of course the autoloader gun at the end, but the non-autoloader fast firing gun isn't really that worse than the autoloader gun. It is also fun to see the turret and hull being very similar to Tech Tree vehicles, a very nice addition. Now the combat abilities is where you get your heals from and some additional abilities unique for each tank. The only thing I can say here is that they are all quite interesting, but some are pretty strong or even broken, like abilities of the Raven or the mines from the Varjar. Vision and radio. An interesting form of the vision system with the usual 50 auto spot range, but also a vision cone, so you can only spot enemies where you're generally aiming. This made for some weird hits from enemies you don't see that are quite nearby, but that adds to the excitement more than that it is annoying. Simply adapt to the situation and you will, well, hopefully overcome most problems. I usually just try to turn my turret around and around as much as possible as some kind of radar system so I can get vision as effectively as possible from all directions, so I exactly know when I'm getting ambushed or followed or stalked. The radio mechanic is also very useful. I use it almost all the time, mostly to locate crates for looting. You do give your own position away to the enemy, but again, I see nothing really wrong with that. It's just an element that has both an advantage and disadvantage. But using it all the time is, well, in my opinion, the best way to go, especially if you are in rather fast vehicles, so you can see enemies approaching and know where they are generally are, so you can either avoid them or just go straight for them. Looting. So looting has changed a bit through the years, but it's again nothing really to worry about. Each crate has its own unique loot, with the spoils of war from destroyed enemies and the airdrops as the most valued ones. It might get a bit annoying if there are only yellow or green crates around. I really do like having it mixed up so I get enough supply of both ammo and heals/repairs. Also, I don't know exactly anymore, but I think the green crates are now giving more experience for leveling up. So if you want to look at that, try to focus the green crates, which gives like 300 XP and the yellow 200, something like that. And then the airdrop and the spoils of war like 500 or 800. Like significantly more. So you might find it more interesting to take a bit more risk and get more spoils of war or airdrops in order to level up faster. Renting! Well, it had to come. Until now, all of the elements from Steel Hunter were fine or even great. But they had to ruin it with rental tanks. Okay, how little could you play the tanks if you didn't pay up? Wait, what? It's reasonable this time? So the way that this fuel system, I mean rental system works this year is by gathering steel seals. With enough steel seals you can unlock a vehicle for rent with 650 seals for already known tanks or 1200 seals for one of the 3 new tanks. Now there are 2 reasons why I don't really see this as problematic as, well, let's say, all of the rental, fuel or other pay-to-play bullshit that Wargaming likes to put in special game modes these days. Okay, calm down for a bit. One reason is that the seals can be obtained relatively quickly. Unless you really suck in Steel Hunter, it's going to take you a while. But I noticed that I can unlock tanks for rent with reasonable speed for the duration, 1 month, of the entire event. After just playing 1 week with the free tanks, I accumulated pretty much enough seals to unlock at least half of the rental tanks. And when I play those rental tanks, I still earn more seals that I could use for even more rental tanks. The other reason is that the rental period is 1 entire week. So basically you can play 1 of the new tanks each week with only the first week of the event grinding with your free tanks. Now I couldn't play that often, I was quite busy outside of World of Tanks and I still was able to play all of the tanks. Maybe if I rented every tank for every week I would come on short in seals, but with some bit of careful management it was very doable. I also, for once, understand Wargaming putting the new tanks behind a rental paywall, because otherwise you would only see those new 3 tanks being played, which will reduce the variation of enemies you will face, making the game mode more predictable. So actually well done here, Wargaming, on this version of Rental Tanks. Please, 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 please do it like this from now on forwards. Please. Make this the example for all future rental elements in special game modes. So some last other things are that you had a special crew in the form of only 1 commander with 3 skills/perks which could differ per commander. Again, a nice addition for some variety. You also had some missions for bonds and camel style, which is always nice. The soundtracks are, as always, done exceptionally well, and although I haven't really paid that much attention to it, you could actually view your statistics of Steel Hunter this year. I'm not really sure because the tab isn't in your garage anymore, but well, I don't deem it necessary, so well, no further comments on this as well. So in conclusion, looking back all the points I've been talking about, and I've been talking about in a relative positive light, I can conclude that Steel Hunter is one, if not the best alternative game mode that has been ever implemented in World of Tanks. Unless it really isn't your playstyle to play Battle Royale, 1 against all. But for me personally, it was a nice fresh breath of air, and I really do like that it's going back each year, now multiple times each year. Not really too long, of course, otherwise it will get dull, just like Frontline, but it is a nice alternative game mode to dabble in so from time to time. So I do hope that things are continuing as it is right now. I really don't see any problems with the game mode right now, except for maybe some of the abilities being kind of strong, but that really is a minor detail that can be adjusted quite easily. It's better than, well, having quite a bullshit rental system like other game modes. So in the end, Steel Hunter, I really recommend playing it sometimes. There might still be new additions to it, new updates, other maps and so forth, but I think I covered pretty much the general feeling of Steel Hunter, and that feeling is rather exciting. So with that, that's the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed it, and as always, I will see you next time. Laters!